we thought Mass was boring, but my mom said, you know, we're Catholic, we never take a vacation from Mass.
That's a solid mom you have.
It is, and that's one of the reasons why I'm sitting here today is because of her prayers. And she planted, my dad, you know, very faithful Catholic as well, and they both planted some very deep seeds in our lives. And, but I mean, we knew the church, we knew the truth about the church, we played a family rosary, we did all that kind of stuff. My mom forced me to go to like youth retreats and things like that, but I didn't know my faith, and when I talk about knowing it, I didn't know it here. I was horridly uncatechized, and when I was in college, I was dating a man who was, his father was a Southern Baptist minister, and this man would always challenge me. It's like, you Catholics, you guys worship Mary, and I'm like, I don't know, do we? You know, like for real, it was. I love
your story because I was the exact, I mean, when I tell you the exact same way, I dated a Baptist girl who knew her scripture, and whenever she found out that I was, at this point, I'd given my life to Christ to a Protestant retreat, and she was like, well, you're saved now, Josh, are you still Catholic? And I was like, yeah, and she said, well, you know, Catholics worship Mary, and my exact response was, we do? My mom does have a lot of Mary statues in the house, because I didn't know we don't. And I was like, and so I left the church because of what she told me. And it was like, it was great how the Lord worked through that whole experience, but as I'm hearing your story, I'm like, that's the exact same thing I went through.
Exactly. And so even though I went to CCD and we did, I don't know, somehow I missed the boat. I didn't really believe, and I guess I really didn't experience the reality that when the priest takes that piece of bread and he breathes on it, and it really becomes in persona Christi, in the person of Christ, the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. I had no idea. I didn't know that when you go to confession and you're honest with a priest, you're meeting the heart, the merciful heart of Christ. It's not about the priest, so to speak. I mean, he's not going to pass out, you know, and you speak the truth. Not only does Jesus heal you, but, you know, he gives you extra grace, but he also wills to remember your sin no more.
Right. And that's what's so powerful, because sometimes people are scared of confession, or even after they've confessed a sin, sometimes the evil one can bring it back up to you, and then you're like, oh man, I'm so bad for what I've done. And it's like, no, if you confessed it, it's done. It's over. The Lord does not remember it anymore, so why are you remembering it, you know?
Totally. Yeah, definitely. And so
totally. So cool.
Well, we often we're our most toughest critics, I guess you could say, because God forgives us and other people forgive us, but we're like, no, I must hold on to this, you know, but...
Right. Were you happy whenever you were not participating in the church? Apart from your mom made you, were you happy like doing whatever you were doing? Was that fulfilling you at all?
Now I know that I wasn't.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, I guess you don't really think about that. You're just like, well, this is what I have to do, and I'm doing sports, and I've got these boyfriends, and I'm partying, and I'm doing all this kind of stuff, and I'm just filling my time.
Right.
And you know, we talked about that earlier. I couldn't stand silence.
Yeah.
I could never stand silence. I always had to have the TV on or the radio on or music on, and especially as I got into college and the darkness became more I just could never stand the silence. So now I know, looking back at myself, what I was really doing was covering up some serious problems that I had, and I was very broken inside. And there's a 12-step saying that says, "We're only as sick as our secrets."
Yeah.
And so by the time I was in college, I was a very sick young woman, very sick. So.
And it's so true, because the Lord, he wants to bring everything that's in the darkness to the light, whereas the enemy wants to keep everything in the darkness, because as long as it's in the darkness, it's not going to get dealt with.
Totally.
And that's all he tries to do, is keep it hidden. Don't bring that to the light, because Christ is in the light.
Exactly, and isn't that the temptation from the garden? When Adam and Eve sinned, they hid.
Yeah.
They hid from God. Like, that's our first. His love is not unconditional.
Right.
I'm going to be, you know, expelled, or I'm not going to be unloved, and I didn't know about any of that, and so the natural instinct was to hide within myself.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is so true, because even today, like, whenever we sin, not even after sin, there's obviously hiding after the sin, the shame that comes, but most of the time whenever you do sin, it's always like behind closed doors. Like, hey, shut the door, let me gossip with you for a second. Let me tell you something. Like, if you have to shut the door to tell somebody something, you probably shouldn't do it, or to do anything else, you probably shouldn't do it. You know, it's like, because that's what happens. The devil's like, go off, get away. And it's like, no. If this can't be said in the light, like, it shouldn't be said at all.
Amen. That's
so let's continue with your story. So you get into college. What was that experience like, playing volleyball and doing all the great stuff that you were doing?
It was incredible. I really learned that at a Division I university, when you sign a scholarship, you're really making a business agreement. It's no longer for fun. They own you, and they invest money in you, and so your whole schedule is arranged around sports and practice. And when I got to college, the first thing they did was put me on a 5-year program. So I redshirted my freshman year. I weighed like 110 pounds. They put me in the weight room 5 days a week, and to kind of adjust to this different level of volleyball. And my whole life was about sports. But I also, I didn't go to church anymore. I was like, I'm out of here, because I really thought God sucked the fun out of everything. And so I said, I'm not going to be unhappy anymore. I'm going to party. I had a boyfriend on the football team, a really amazing guy on the football team. I did well in school. I loved MTV. I loved Glamour magazine. I loved short skirts. I totally bought into every lie you could possibly imagine, looking for happiness. Yeah. And I was just full speed ahead. And I wanted to work at ESPN or CNN or be a CEO of a company. That was my goal in life. I wanted to be wealthy, and I wanted to have a nice life. And so I was pursuing that goal. But like I said, as the darkness got deeper, what happened was towards the end of my freshman year, I had an experience that changed my life forever. And what I found out was, when it was silent, the truth was that I was really broken inside, really broken, really miserable. And one day I was looking out the window, and I was thinking of, I got this boyfriend, I party all the time, I don't have to go to church, I've got good grades, I play volleyball on scholarship, like, what's wrong with me? And I really had an experience, and you have to understand, I wasn't praying at the time, I wasn't going to church or anything, and I had this experience where I really felt like God pierced my soul, and I saw myself when I died. And I saw that, the day that I die, and everybody dies, that's part of life, but the day that I die, God's not going to ask me about mommy and daddy. Because here I was 18 and like, oh, you can't make me, kind of a thing like that. And what I really saw was God, I was going to be held accountable for my own decisions.
Could you see God, like when you saw in this image? Or?
No, it was like something within my soul that I just saw myself. It was an experience of seeing myself before God, not necessarily seeing Him, but an experience of seeing myself before Him. And I knew that He was going to hold me accountable for my own decisions. And the truth was, I knew that I was living in open mortal sin. I knew it. And don't we know what's right and what's wrong? But
we do.
I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be loved. I wanted to feel beautiful. And I was willing to trade my soul for that.
The Lord shares me over the summer. He told me that at the core of everyone's heart, there is a desire to be desired by the other. And I was like, wow, Lord, that's deep, and so I started praying with that, and I was thinking, like, the only reason why we even sin, and I'll say this, like, the only reason why we sin is because we want to be welcome. We want to be accepted. We want to be, like, desired. Like, we want to be fit in. And so we would give into promiscuous relationships. We would do things that we know in our heart isn't right. Because we're like, if I don't do this, then maybe they will reject me. And there's no worse feeling than to feel rejected. But what we don't realize, something you came to realize later on in your story, is that we have a God who created us for no other reason than because He desires us. And when we realize that in our hearts, like, God desires us, it's like, no, I don't care. Like, I don't care what you think of me, because I'm desirable. Like, maybe not in the eyes of the world, but like in the eyes of my God who created me, like, He finds me desirable.
Ah, that's beautiful.
What's from God, so don't give me the credit.
But no, that's a beautiful sharing. It's so true. It does not touch deep in our hearts.
What does that mean to you to know that Mary sent you this priest, our mother in heaven?
That's even now, after all these years, that's just, I mean, it's just kind of like, it's a mystery, I guess, beyond my comprehension that she, you know, because I really did, I know I'm not now, but I really felt abandoned by God for many years. You know, I felt very alone and isolated, and to think that she would notice this punk kid, you know, like that she would send somebody like that to me to come and heal me. And then later on, she would call me to her own community. Yeah. And then form me after her own heart. Like, that's incredible. I just...
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Yeah. I mean, that's crazy. Like, she's like the ideal disciple, you know, like definitely totally just like, be it done unto me according to that word. Like, she had a conversation with an angel about bringing the Son of God into this world. Like, something like that's a lot of discernment, like, you know, to go through. And she didn't like what I'll do sometimes because I'm so weak is after, you know, I feel the Lord calling me to something, I'll like, well, let me wait till the situation's over, Lord. Let me look at it from outside and then I'll give you an answer. But she was like, within it all, like, yes, like, be it done unto me. Like, that's such an act of faith. Isn't it, though? To do that, and then to know that she would be rejected for it, and that she would go through, you know, shame by her community for being pregnant out of wedlock. Totally, yeah. Like, what a mother we have in Mary. That's intense. And I think a lot of times we reduce her to this little plastic statue, you know, kind of like, maybe like non-opinionated and kind of like a doormat. And that woman's no joke. No. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, she's a real woman. And she wears combat boots too. She kicks demons stuff. She kicks their tails, demon tails. Yeah. Don't mess with her, man. Don't mess with her. Because she cares about her kids. Just, you know, she does. Man, she's like a mother lion that'll fight for us. And she was obviously fighting for you, like, to send that priest to love you like that. So what happened? You begin to experience the love of God in your life. Where do you go from there? I began a really deep search within, of searching for something more. And I think even in my secular dreams of wanting to rise to the top of a corporation or in the media, I really wanted to be something great. And it was a very slow process, but Father he was just my friend the whole time. And I graduated from college, I was dating somebody different. I mean, there's a string of men along the way, and I broke up with him, and I still, you know, wasn't happy. And Father said, why don't you just come down to our mission in New Mexico for a little bit? And I'd never done any missionary work. I mean, I wouldn't even go to Goodwill. You know what I'm saying? Like, for real. My parents, it was crazy. I'm like, I really shouldn't be here. It's just totally crazy, the story. But so he's like, why don't you just come down and spend some time with us? And I did, and it's silent there. Wow. And we know how you felt about the silence before. It was scary, you know, at first, and I didn't really know what to expect. But the cool thing is the men novices were there at this particular mission. They did their novitiate there. And I had never met guys who were young, went to daily mass, like they were good looking, and prayed the rosary, and they were holy. I think it blew my mind. And I just, by watching them, being there for a few days, it was really like, wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. It's amazing what the witness of others can do. Like, whenever when we see seminarians, we see nuns like you, like just holy young nuns, like it does so much for our prayer life. And then we recently had a grace. We went to the March Flight with a group of kids, and one of the young men told me, he said, you know, like, he's discerning right now. He feels comfortable with saying that because he saw the joy in the seminarians. And I've never heard a dude say, like, because y'all are joyful, you know? So I was like, Lord, like, you're totally powerful because, like, you know, like, it's not us, you know? But it's so beautiful, like, what the witness of someone else can do just by their joy, by their holiness, and, like, by not being ashamed of it, you know? It's like the Lord's calling us to be holy, so be holy. Totally, yeah. So you spent some time in the mission. What kind of work did you do down there? That's mostly a house of formation. Okay. So I spent a lot of time before the Blessed Sacrament. Oh, and Jesus. Father just took me out on errands, and I got to know the sisters that were there at the mission, and it was really shortly after that time that I heard Jesus call me to be his bride. And when I realized that was happening, or when I felt that happen to me, it wasn't like a voice from the sky, or there was no burning bush or anything like that, but it was an interior realization that what I was looking for on all these men, these poor guys, I was looking for perfection. And none of them were perfect, you know, so I just went from one to the next, to the next, to the next. What I was really looking for was somebody I could give myself completely to, body and soul forever, and that he would give himself to me. That's what I really desired. And when I realized that Jesus was calling me to that, I feel like, you know how when you do a puzzle and you're missing a piece, you know, like I had the kind of brother who would like eat the last piece, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, what's up, man? But I felt like my soul was like that, and I felt like Jesus got on the floor and he found the piece, and he brought it, he put the puzzle in my soul, and he made the picture complete. And I've known ever since that moment. I was sitting in Father's office, and he'd never, to that time, because you can't tell somebody they have a vocation. We have to be very careful when we help people discern, because it's between them and the God. And so Father never ever said,
you have vocation, you know.
Yeah.
You have to come to that yourself, just like when you choose a spouse. You have to come to that realization yourself, even though your parents might be like, oh, she's awesome, or he's great. You have to decide that yourself.
Definitely.
But I've known ever since that moment that God was calling me, and I said yes. And
That's
here I am.
amazing.
Yeah.